In this video, I'm going to be going over the stages of cognitive development, Piaget stages of cognitive development. This is not the schema, accommodation, assimilation that we talked about in class. These are his 4 stages of development. And those 4 stages are sensory motor, so we'll go over that one, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational. So those are the 4 stages we're going to go over. First, sensory motor. The sensory motor stage, this is from birth to 2. And if you look at the title, this helps you figure out what's going on. Basically, it's a progression in the infant's ability to organize and coordinate sensations with physical movements. So you're combining your sensations and your movements. So the baby sees something that he's interested in and he reaches for it and is able to put it in his mouth so he can taste it. That's going to be a sensory motor ability. And so what we'll talk about in class connected to this is the A, not B error. Kids make an A, not B error when they're in the sensory motor stage. It's a difficulty combining their sensations in order to create appropriate movements. You'll see a video in class, it'll make more sense there. So A, not B error is present. In this stage, you also develop object permanence. That's something else we'll go over in class connected to the sensory motor stage. So at the beginning of this stage, they do not have object permanence. And by the end, they are going to have object permanence. And then the next stage in development is going to be pre-operational. And again, if you look at the title, this is going to help you figure out what is going on. So if you look at the title, it's before operations. This is going to be ages 2 to 7. And so in this stage, you do not have operations. Operations are internalized sets of actions that allow children to do mentally what before they did physically. So they're able to think about actions, to trace their steps in their mind, means they're able to do operations. And so again, this is the pre-operational stage, so they do not have the ability to do that. And so the way that's going to come out is that they are going to fail certain tests that require operational thinking. So they are going to fail the conservation task, and you will see examples of that in class. Other things that occur during this is when stable concepts are formed. Concepts, think about schema that were discussed in class, that would fall into this category. This is also during this stage when mental reasoning emerges. So by the end, it is there, much more than the first. A couple of things actually that you have in this stage. You have egocentrism, and you'll see some videos connected to that in class. Egocentrism, basically you have egocentric thinking. You think about yourself. You cannot think about how other people have different thoughts, and I'll define that more in class. You also have magical beliefs. So magical thinking is also a part of this, such as animism. Again, we'll talk about that more in class and go more in depth on conservation versus centration. But those are all connected to the pre-operational stage. Next, you have concrete operational. In the concrete operational stage, you are somewhere between 7 to 12, that's when this happens. You're able to classify objects and consider relationships between them. So you're able to think about relationships between objects. That will assist with serration and transitivity, 2 things we will talk about in class. And you are able to pass conservation tasks. Again, that's something you'll see an example of in class. And then finally, the last stage is formal operational. And formal operational is going to be 12 for the rest of your life. You should be formal operational. And in this stage, you're capable of abstract, idealistic, and logical thinking. You can reason about what is possible and hypothetical. So it's not concrete anymore. Now you can think hypothetically, hypothetical deductive reasoning. You can also reflect on your own thoughts. And again, you have that hypothetical deductive reasoning. And that's when adolescents have the cognitive ability to develop hypotheses about ways to solve problems. So that's also going to come into play here. This is also, we'll talk later on this in class about formal operational, and something else you tend to see in this stage connected to adolescence, which is the imaginary audience and the personal fable. As you're able to think about what's possible, as you can reflect on your own thoughts, you're also able to reflect on the thoughts of others, and sometimes you get that thinking wrong, and thus a new form of egocentrism called the imaginary audience pops up in that stage. Again, something else we'll go more in depth on in class. You'll see a video of an adolescent with that imaginary audience. We'll talk about the personal fable. But these are generally the 4 cognitive stages. We will go in depth on each of these, but these are the basic definitions at this point that I would like in your notes.